Frost clung to the wooden plank sidewalk of Larkspur Ridge, crunching beneath Sheriff James Kincaid's boots as he made his final patrol of the night. The wind whipped across the deserted main street, carrying the scent of pine and iron-cold air. His breath fogged before him, and he tugged the collar of his coat higher. That's when he spotted it, a hunched figure beneath the dim glow of the mercantile lantern, a woman half buried in snowdrifts, clutching something bundled tight. His heart lurched when he saw a newborn's tiny hand stretch out of the blanket. In that single moment, the lawman would risk everything and soon cast aside his own badge to save them both. James Kincaid had worn the sheriff's star of Larkspur Ridge, Wyoming, for nearly 3 years. Folks trusted him, a steady lawman with a quiet air, known for his even temper and unwavering moral code. He hadn't grown up dreaming of being a sheriff. The role found him after the previous lawman was gunned down by a horse thief. James was the best shot left in town, and the mayor pressed the badge into his reluctant hand. Over time, he accepted the job's burden, forging calm out of chaos in a settlement that teetered between civilization and the wild frontier. That January night, the wind howled like a hungry coyote. Snow piled knee-high along the boardwalks, forcing even the hardiest travelers indoors. James completed his usual late patrol, ensuring drunken cowboys didn't start brawls in the saloon, and that shuttered shops remained secure against thieves. Nothing seemed amiss until he heard a weak cry near the mercantile's corner. At first he suspected a stray cat, or maybe a squeaking door. But something about the sound, raw, high-pitched, made his pulse quicken. He tilted the brim of his Stetson and followed the noise. And there, half hidden by the drifting snow, lay a woman in tattered clothes, face ghost-pale and crusted with ice. Her arms encircled a small blanket-wrapped bundle. She trembled violently, barely conscious. Alarm shot through him. He crouched, brushing snow from her hair. "Ma'am," he said softly. She didn't respond. He touched her cheek, wincing at the frigid cold. When he pulled back the blanket, a newborn's whimper confirmed his fear. The child's tiny face was ashen eyes closed. James wasted no time. He shrugged out of his thick coat, draping it over them both, and gently lifted the woman with the infant cradled between them. He didn't know who she was or why she was here, but that didn't matter. They needed immediate warmth, or they'd die before sunrise. Fighting the wind's bite, he trudged across the street to the sheriff's office. He set them near the potbelly stove, heart hammering as he worked to stoke a roaring fire. Holding the baby closer to the heat, he carefully touched the infant's skin, still warm enough to have a chance. The mother's eyelids fluttered, but she remained too weak to speak. As the flames crackled and the temperature rose, James realized that this moment would change his life forever. He was sworn to serve and protect, but saving this woman and child transcended any oath on paper. With a pang of dread and urgency, he silently vowed to keep them both alive, no matter the cost. At the first hint of dawn, James locked up the sheriff's office and carried the half-frozen woman and her baby to Doc Merriweather's clinic. The old doctor's eyebrows shot up when he saw them. Without a word, he ushered James inside and instructed him to lay mother and child on a cot near the back room. Doc Merriweather was a stout, no-nonsense man who'd once served as a Union Army medic. His hands were gentle, though, as he examined the unconscious woman, checking for frostbite exposure and any injuries. The baby let out a feeble cry, stirring Doc's measured urgency. "We'll need hot water blankets, lots of them," Doc told James. "Her pulse is faint, but it's there." She's fighting. The baby too, but we must act fast. James followed every instruction, stoking the small iron stove, fetching water from the well, rummaging for leftover bandages and salves. The townspeople awoke to a swirl of rumor. Word traveled that the sheriff had found a mysterious woman, nearly dead in the snow. By noon, half of Larkspur Ridge knew about her, and curious faces gathered outside the clinic door, braving the cold for news. Mayor Travis Hutchins arrived breath-puffing in the icy air. He cornered James, demanding details. Is she an outlaw? A wanderer? Where's she from? The mayor's mustache twitched with each question. James shook his head, exasperated. I don't know. She hasn't spoken. She was unconscious near froze. Let's worry about saving her life first. He turned back to the clinic, leaving the mayor sputtering. Inside, Doc Merriweather continued his grim work, checking the woman's fingers and toes for blackened skin. Thankfully, it seemed her limbs were still salvageable, though her lips bore signs of frostbite. The baby was in slightly better condition than the mother, likely due to being tucked beneath her. That maternal warmth might have been the only thing keeping the child alive. As afternoon sun streamed through the clinic's windows, the mother's eyes finally fluttered open. She murmured something, lips chapped. James, standing at her bedside, leaned in, but could barely catch her words. A name, Emmy. Or was it Emma? He couldn't be sure. The baby let out a soft whimper, and she turned her head, fractionally, arms twitching toward the child. Relief flooded James. She was alive enough to care to remember. Gently, he brought the infant closer, letting the mother see that the child was safe. A tear slipped down her cheek, but her strength was spent. She sank back into feverish sleep. Doc touched James's shoulder. She needs rest, so does the little one. I'll keep them here for now. You might want to find her some clothing supplies. She's in no shape to leave soon. James nodded, removing his hat out of respect. A swirl of questions burned in his mind. Who was she? What had happened? How had she ended up alone in a blizzard? But for now, only one certainty mattered. They were alive, and he intended to keep them that way. The next morning brought a few answers, though not many. The woman, still pale as parchment, managed to whisper that her name was Anna. Her voice trembled with emotion and exhaustion, as if the mere act of speaking dredged up ghosts she wasn't ready to face. Doc Merriweather fed her warm broth in tiny spoonfuls, urging her to regain strength. The baby, whom Anna called Lily, was in better spirits, taking small bits of goat's milk from a bottle. James hovered by the bedside, quietly supportive. He wanted to ask how she'd ended up alone in a fierce Wyoming winter, but each time Anna stirred, she drifted back into a fevered sleep. Doc insisted she needed more days of recovery before any heavy questioning. Meanwhile, the curious chatter around Larkspur Ridge grew. Some speculated Anna might be on the run from Pinkerton detectives, a rumor that circulated whenever a stranger arrived in dire circumstances. Others thought she might be from a wagon train that had broken apart in the mountains. A few suspected a tragic backstory with outlaws or an abusive husband. The gossip was relentless, but no one truly knew. James did his best to quell the talk. Whenever folks peppered him with speculation, he'd shrug and say, "Let's see if she recovers first, then we'll know." But inside his mind bristled with the possibilities. He'd learned from experience that the West was full of heartbreak stories. No one drifted through winter plains without reason. By late afternoon, James conferred with Doc Merriweather in the clinic's small front office. "She's stable but weak," Doc reported. I suspect she endured some extreme trauma. Malnourished, too. The child is maybe a week old, if that." James pressed his lips tight. She was wandering, or left out there. Doc shrugged. Hard to say. She might have fled at something. Women don't usually birth alone in winter if they have anyone to rely on. A cold knot formed in James's stomach. He recalled his own upbringing. His mother died young, leaving him an orphan at 15. That raw memory fueled his desire to protect Anna and Lily from the bleak unknown. He left the clinic to gather supplies, extra blankets, food, and a spare cot for Anna when she was discharged. In the general store, the proprietor, Mrs. Granby, gave him a sympathetic smile, offering a discount on infant clothes. "Such a miracle you found them, Sheriff," she said. God's hand was in that moment. James nodded, gratitude and uncertainty mingling in his heart. As he stepped back onto the boardwalk, the wind carried a faint promise of spring. Yet he couldn't shake the sense that Anna's arrival heralded complications. If her past was chasing her, it might soon catch up to Larkspur Ridge. And James, sworn to uphold the law, would be caught in the middle, especially if Anna needed more than just saving from the cold. Days stretched into a week. Anna's strength returned in small increments, color rising in her cheeks, voice steadying as she fed Lily with trembling hands. Each time James visited, she offered a faint, grateful smile that stirred something inside him he hadn't felt in years. He found himself bringing small tokens, a bouquet of wildflowers, from the meadow fresh bread from the local baker. She'd look at him with those wide, haunted eyes, as if unsure how to express her thanks. One morning, while Doc Merriweather checked Anna's bandaged feet for frostbite damage, James quietly asked if the doc thought she would walk again. Doc nodded. "She should with time. The frostbite wasn't too severe thanks to your quick action." Relief coursed through James. He left the clinic's back room to see Lily fussing in a cradle. She was so tiny, shockingly small, and each cry tugged at his heart. He carefully scooped her up, rocking her the way he'd seen mothers do. To his surprise, the infant settled, blinking up at him with curious eyes. He'd never pictured himself tending to a newborn. The feel of Lily's soft cheek against his calloused palm was both humbling and profound. Out in the main waiting area, the door chimed as Miss Harriet, the spinster teacher, arrived with a basket of crocheted items for Anna. Harriet and James exchanged polite greetings, and Harriet made a show of cooing at the baby. "You've quite a knack for fatherhood, Sheriff," she teased. James felt heat rise in his neck. He mumbled something about just helping out until Anna was well. Harriet's gaze flicked with a hint of amusement. Clearly the entire town was witnessing the gentle shift in James's demeanor. Later that afternoon, Anna managed to sit up hairbrushed for the first time in days. She beckoned James close. Her voice quivered with embarrassment and relief. I can't recall everything she admitted, but I remember the snow, the fear that Lily and I wouldn't survive. You found us. Her eyes glistened. I owe you our lives. James felt a lump in his throat. You don't owe me anything, he answered softly. I'm just glad you're both safe. She swallowed tears, threatening. I can't stay here in the clinic forever, but I have nowhere to go. A wave of protectiveness welled in him. We'll figure it out, he said, voice steadier than he felt. Until you decide your next step, let me make sure you and Lily have a roof overhead. The softness in her gaze sent warmth through James's chest. A fleeting thought flickered. He'd dedicated himself to Larkspur Ridge as sheriff. But perhaps fate had more in store than mere law-keeping. In that moment, As Lily cooed between them, life's stark possibilities seemed to converge, and an unspoken promise formed in the hush of the clinic's room. Midway through the second week, Anna improved enough that Doc Merriweather deemed she could leave under supervised care. James offered to house her in his modest cabin, just a single bedroom, but warm and near the center of town. Anna, uncertain yet grateful, accepted. The day she transferred, half the town turned out to watch as though it were a parade. James placed Lily in a small wicker basket layered with quilts. As they rode in the sheriff's wagon, Anna cradled the basket, eyes flicking to the dusty horizon. The winter snows had receded somewhat, revealing patches of brown grass. She said little, but her trembling hands spoke volumes of anxiety. Arriving at his cabin, James helped her inside. The living space was spare, a wood stove in the corner, a small table shelves lined with neatly stacked books, and a single rocking chair near the fireplace. Anna looked around with wide eyes. "You live alone?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Have for years. It's not fancy, but it's safe." He offered a smile he hoped was reassuring. She lowered her gaze. "It's more than I could ask for." Over the next few days, James discovered that hosting an infant upended his quiet routine. Lily cried at odd hours, needing constant attention. Anna tried to do most of the care, but her movements were slow, still hindered by healing joints and frostbitten toes. James willingly pitched in, fetching water, warming milk, even attempting to wash cloth diapers in a barrel behind the cabin. He quickly learned respect for every mother who ever changed a diaper by lamplight. In stolen moments, Anna revealed fragments of her past, though never the whole story. She recalled traveling across the territory with a small group. A storm overtook them one by one. They scattered or succumbed. She mentioned an older woman who helped deliver Lily, but that woman died soon after childbirth. Anna fled something bandits, maybe. She hesitated to name them. Her eyes filled with fear whenever mention of a threat arose, so James didn't push. One morning, Lily giggled for the first time, and Anna's face lit up with sheer wonder. The sound melted James's heart. For a moment, the cabin felt like a home, a place of hope, not just survival. Yet outside the duties of a sheriff beckoned him, reminding him that the frontier's cruelties didn't vanish, simply because new life blossomed under his roof. Despite the blossoming warmth, James sensed that Anna carried deeper secrets. She grew quiet whenever he asked about her child's father. The possibility lingered that some unresolved danger might come to Larkspur Ridge seeking her. As Lily dozed in the cradle, James's mind churned with the tension of balancing law enforcement, fatherly instincts, and an unspoken longing for something more permanent with Anna. Late one evening, after Lily finally fell asleep in the makeshift crib near the hearth, James and Anna sat at the small dining table, sharing a humble meal of beans, cornbread, and salted pork. The crackle of the fireplace offered a soothing backdrop. Anna's pale face glowed in the lamplight, still delicate but gaining color each day. James mustered courage. "Anna," he began softly, "I don't want to pry, but I worry about what might have driven you into that snowstorm. Is there someone out there who means you harm?" She stared into her half-empty bowl. Shoulders tense. For a moment he thought she might brush him off again, but then her eyes lifted, brimming with a weary sadness. "His name was Declan. We traveled together. He claimed to be my husband, though we never truly wed. At first he was kind, but things changed." A tremor ran through her voice. "He gambled, drank. When I fell pregnant, he grew distant. One night he beat me, told me to get rid of the child or he'd do it himself." Rage flared in James's chest. He kept his face calm, though his knuckles whitened on the table's edge. "So you ran?" he asked, voice tight. Anna nodded. "I had no choice. I waited until he passed out, then fled with only what I could carry. I'd heard rumors of a settlement in the mountains where women could find work. That was my plan, to vanish. But the winter storm caught me off guard. The small group I joined didn't last, and I gave birth with the help of a traveler who found me. After that, I remember stumbling, trying to keep Lily warm. Then darkness. Her voice cracked. James gently laid a hand on hers, swallowing his fury. "You're safe now," he assured. But inside, dread coiled. If Declan were alive, might he come searching for them? Anna seemed to read his thoughts. She inhaled shakily. He might. He never said he loved me, but he could see Lily as property or a bargaining chip. Men like him don't let go easily. A tense silence stretched. Then James spoke with quiet resolve. "If he comes, he'll find the law here, and more." The flicker in his eyes left no doubt about how far he'd go to protect them. She offered a trembling smile, tears glistening. I can't thank you enough, James." He squeezed her hand gently. "You don't owe me anything. I just want Lily to grow up free from fear, and for you to heal." In the hush of that moment, Anna bowed her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. James got up, retrieved a clean kerchief, and handed it to her. Their fingers brushed, sending warmth through them both. Outside the wind moaned, but inside the spark of understanding drew them closer, forging a new trust in the flicker of lamplight. Over the next few weeks, the people of Larkspur Ridge observed Sheriff James Kincaid's shifting priorities with varied opinions. Some gossiped that he spent too much time at home, not patrolling as diligently. Others admired his sense of compassion, praising him for taking in a desperate mother and child. The local blacksmith, Henry Wilcox, even crafted a new sign for James's cabin that read, "No trespassing sheriff's quarters," affixing it to the gate in good humor. Yet trouble was never far in a frontier town. One afternoon, while James was out collecting mail, the local saloon erupted in shouts. A traveling gambler accused a ranch hand of cheating at cards. Fists flew, and soon firearms were drawn. James rushed in, ordering them to stand down. With calm authority, he disarmed both men and escorted them to the jail cells for a cooling-off period. It was all in a day's work, but as he turned the key in the cell door, his thoughts returned to Anna and Lily, safe in his cabin. That vulnerability pulled at him more than any fight ever had. Sure enough, the next day, a scrawny drifter limped into town claiming he'd been ambushed by an outlaw near the foothills. The description, a tall, lanky fellow with a scar across his cheek, didn't match Declan precisely, but it stoked James's concern. He scoured the vicinity with a couple of townsmen but found no sign of the supposed outlaw. Just the usual dryness of the high plain and the ominous hush that signaled bigger storms might come. Anna, sensing James's worry, tried to reassure him. "Declan's probably miles away, if he's even alive. He'd have no clue where we are." But James knew the West's highways and byways were tangled. It took only one slip of the tongue from a traveler or a store clerk to reveal Anna's presence. So he doubled his caution. He showed her how to latch the cabin's windows from inside, how to load the small revolver he kept hidden in a drawer. She looked uneasy, but nodded, determined to protect Lily if needed. Meanwhile, Lily grew by leaps and bounds, gurgling happily in the mornings. She latched on to James's finger with fierce grip whenever he kissed her tiny forehead, before heading off to do his rounds. Those bright baby eyes gave him reason to smile each day, reminding him that some joys outpaced the shadows of the frontier. Still, rumors lingered. Perhaps it was just talk from bored townsfolk, or maybe the sense of danger that accompanied every new rumor about outlaws. James braced himself for confrontation, not knowing how or when it might arrive. All the while, an unspoken closeness blossomed between him and Anna, each stolen glance or shared laugh forging a deeper bond. If a threat came, James intended to stand between them and any rattlesnakes life might throw their way. Spring arrived in Larkspur Ridge with a welcome thaw patches of green peeking through muddy roads. The snows receded, and streams ran swift with meltwater. Every day, Lily discovered more of her voice babbling and giggling as Anna cradled her on the porch. Town routine resumed. A new school teacher arrived, the blacksmith hammered day long for ranchers needing new horseshoes, and the saloon bustled with prospectors. One warm afternoon, James was finishing his midday patrol. He tipped his hat to Mrs. Granby at the general store, smiling as she fussed over her new display of seeds for gardens. As he turned to leave, he caught sight of Anna walking by with Lily in her arms, picking up a sack of flour. She wore a borrowed dress that fit loosely, her hair pinned back neatly. A pink flush colored her cheeks. She waved timidly, and James approached, heart thumping unexpectedly. "Let me carry that," he offered, taking the flower from her arms. Lily squeaked in delight. Anna smiled in thanks. They strolled back together, the mild breeze carrying the scent of blossoming sage. A comfortable silence enveloped them, broken only by Lily's cheerful babbles. Once they reached the cabin, Anna paused at the threshold, turning to James with a serious expression. "You've done so much, given me and Lily a home, kept us safe," she began softly. "I can't keep relying on your generosity forever. I've been thinking, maybe I should find paying work or see if there's a ranch needing help. Lily can stay with me somehow, or I can ask the doc to watch her." James cut her off gently. "Anna, there's no rush. Besides, with Lily so young, it's hard to juggle a job out there. Let me provide for a bit longer. Unless you truly want to leave." She hesitated, conflicting emotions in her gaze. Then she shook her head. "This is the safest I've felt in years, but I worry about burdening you." Without fully planning it, James set down the flower, took her free hand in his, and spoke words that surprised even him. "You're not a burden. Actually, I'd like you and Lily to stay permanently." Her eyes widened, breath-catching. "James, what are you saying?" A swirl of feelings welled in him. Protectiveness, admiration, the stirrings of love. "I'm saying I want to marry you," he murmured, voice trembling slightly. If you'll have me. I know it's sudden, but I can't imagine my life without you two. And I'd do anything to ensure you both never have to fear again." A tear slid down Anna's cheek. She stared at Lily at the cabin, then back to James. Slowly, a glimmer of hope lit her eyes. She whispered, "Yes, I'd be honored." Then she let him draw her into an embrace, Lily cooing happily between them. In that moment, the dusty frontier world outside vanished, leaving only the promise of a shared future that neither of them had dared dream of mere months ago. News of the engagement raced through Larkspur Ridge like wildfire. Some women in town squealed with delight, eager to plan a wedding. Others questioned whether the sheriff's sudden proposal was wise, suspecting hidden secrets in Anna's past. Nevertheless, as rumor moved, James and Anna quietly prepared for a simple ceremony. A visiting preacher, Reverend Atkins, agreed to preside if they wished. Anna hesitated, her voice trembling as she admitted she'd once been forced into an unholy alliance with Declan, never truly wed, but living under his cruelty. James gently assured her that this time it would be real, a union of choice and love. But in the days leading up to the wedding, James wrestled with a different conflict, his badge. He'd seen how the demands of being sheriff might pull him away from Anna and Lily at crucial moments. The frontier was harsh. He'd lost count of how many times he'd faced armed desperados, had bullets whistle past his ears. If he continued as sheriff, he might bring that violence directly to their doorstep. One evening, as Lily slept in her cradle, he confided his turmoil to Anna. "I don't want to risk your lives. Being sheriff means enemies. Some hold grudges. I can't fight them all, especially if we want a peaceful home." His gaze drifted to the silver star pinned on his vest. "Maybe it's time I step down." Anna's hand found his. "Are you sure you've served this town so well? Would they let you go easily?" James exhaled. "I'll talk to the mayor. He can appoint a new lawman. Larkspur Ridge is calmer than it once was. We can't live under the shadow of a gun forever." Though her expression showed relief, she also touched the star softly, as if recognizing the sacrifice. "You're giving up part of who you are." His lips curved into a faint smile. "Maybe so. But I'd rather define myself by the family I'm building, not the criminals I chase." The next morning he marched into the mayor's office, Travis Hutchins. The mayor blinked in surprise as James laid the sheriff's star on the desk. "You can't be serious," Hutchins sputtered. "The town needs you." James shook his head calmly, explaining his reasons. "I can't protect Larkspur Ridge and keep my new family safe from retribution at the same time. I won't let them become targets." Though it took time, the mayor finally relented with a disgruntled sigh. "Very well. I'll wire Cheyenne or Fort Laramie for a replacement. But you're sure about this?" James nodded firmly. "I am." A weight lifted from his shoulders as he walked out, starless for the first time in years. He glimpsed Anna standing across the street, Lily in her arms. When their eyes met, an unspoken sense of freedom bloomed between them. He'd chosen them over the badge, and he had no regrets. Spring unfurled over Larkspur Ridge with a gentleness that felt like a blessing. The snowmelt trickled through shallow creeks, coaxing green shoots from the once frozen ground. Blossoms clung to cottonwood branches like lace on a bride's veil. Life was returning to the land, and to Anna James and little Lily. As wedding day approached, the town buzzed with anticipation. Though the ceremony was to be simple, word spread fast. It wasn't every day the town's former sheriff married the mysterious woman he had rescued from a snowbank. Folks whispered that fate had a hand in it all. Preparations moved swiftly, spurred on by the small but eager circle of townsfolk who had come to care deeply for Anna. Miss Harriet, the school teacher and self-appointed matron of all things decorous, took charge of Anna's dress. She offered her own mother's lace gown, which she lovingly tailored to fit Anna's slender frame. "Nothing fancy," Harriet said, "but stitched with heart." James, meanwhile, borrowed a suit from the undertaker, one worn only twice. He joked, once for a funeral, once for a christening. He pressed the dark vest himself and polished his boots until they gleamed under the sun. Nervous energy coursed through him, not the kind he knew from standoffs or saloon fights. This was something softer, deeper, a vulnerability he welcomed. They chose to marry beneath the great cottonwood, by the creek just outside of town, known as the Sentinel. The tree had stood for over a century, its gnarled roots anchoring it to the earth like a monument to resilience. It felt fitting. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear. James rose before the sun, sipping strong coffee by the fire. He watched Lily sleeping in her cradle, her tiny hands fisted in dreams. Across the room, Anna stirred the soft rustle of her movement, drawing his gaze. Her presence, once a miracle of survival, now felt as natural as breath. "You nervous?" she asked with a sleepy smile. James turned his voice low. "Not nervous, just grateful." Anna sat up and reached for Lily, cradling her daughter gently. "Me too," she whispered. By mid-morning, townsfolk began to gather at the tree. A few brought flowers, wild daffodils, sprigs of sagebrush and bluebells from the valley. Someone laid down a long rug over the grass. Miss Ethel, the general storekeeper's wife, played a worn fiddle with surprising elegance. Even the blacksmith, Henry Wilcox, contributed a freshly forged horseshoe, polished to a silver sheen and tied with ribbon for good luck. Reverend Atkins arrived last, Bible in hand, spectacles slightly askew from the bumpy wagon ride. He wore his best coat, though a rip under one arm betrayed its age. James stood near the creek, hands clenched and heart racing. His dark vest clung snugly to his frame, and his hat was newly brushed. When Anna stepped into view, he nearly forgot how to breathe. She wore the lace gown like it had always belonged to her. Her hair was pinned back in loose curls, a few wisps dancing in the breeze. Lily sat in her arms wearing a crocheted bonnet, cooing as if she understood the gravity of the moment. Miss Harriet walked Anna forward, beaming with pride. The hush that fell over the gathering was reverent not for grandeur, but for the simple, powerful beauty of this union. Two people who had weathered storms finding home in each other. Reverend Atkins cleared his throat and began. "Dear friends, we are gathered here beneath this sacred sky in the heart of Wyoming to witness the joining of James Kincaid and Anna Rose in marriage." As he spoke, James looked into Anna's eyes and saw every step of their journey reflected back at him. The night she almost froze the tremble in her voice when she first said his name, the fierce love in her arms when she held Lily. She had lost everything, and yet she'd fought to rebuild. Now here she was, offering him her hand with quiet strength. "Do you, James, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to honor and cherish in times of hardship and peace, for as long as you both shall live?" James tightened his grip on her fingers, voice rough. "I do. And do you? Anna, take this man to be your husband, your partner, your shelter, and your strength." Anna blinked, lips trembling. "I do." Rings were exchanged, simple bands borrowed from the local jeweler, meant to be replaced in time. But in that moment, they held more weight than gold ever could. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," Reverend Atkins declared with a warm smile. "You may kiss your bride." James leaned in gently, brushing his lips against Anna's with reverence and awe. Around them, the crowd erupted into soft applause and joyful cheers. Lily squealed from her bonnet as if joining the chorus. Miss Ethel played a jubilant tune on her fiddle as the newlyweds walked back through the gathered townsfolk. Harriet dabbed her eyes. Doc Merriweather clapped James on the shoulder and murmured, "You done good, son." A small table had been laid with cornbread cider and slices of apple pie. Folks lingered in the meadow well into the afternoon, laughing, dancing, sharing stories. James and Anna didn't leave each other's side. Every time their eyes met, a quiet knowing passed between them. They had found something most people spent lifetimes searching for, a love not born of ease, but of resilience, courage, and choice. That night back at the cabin, after Lily was fast asleep, and the last candle flickered low, Anna stood barefoot near the window, bathed in moonlight. James came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Think the town'll get used to calling you Mrs. Kincaid?" he asked with a smirk. She turned in his arms, smiling. "They better. I've waited long enough to be someone's wife on my terms." He kissed her again, slow and certain. Outside, the cottonwood's leaves rustled in the spring wind. Inside, two hearts beat, as one beneath a roof now filled not with silence or fear, but with the music of belonging. The early weeks of James and Anna's marriage unfolded with quiet joy. The warmth of spring melted not only the snows of Larkspur Ridge, but also the remnants of tension that had once clung to their shoulders like a second skin. Lily gurgled and grew stronger each day, her tiny fists exploring the world with determined curiosity. James, no longer burdened by the sheriff's star, turned his attention to the simple tasks of building a home, patching the roof, splitting firewood, and carving a cradle from pine he'd felled with his own hands. Anna bloomed like the wildflowers creeping through the cabin's windowsills. She smiled more freely, slept more deeply, and began humming softly while tending to Lily. The shadow of her past hadn't disappeared, but it no longer swallowed her whole. For a time, it felt as if the world had granted them a reprieve. Then one sharp April morning, the wind shifted. James had risen early to draw water from the well. The air carried the scent of damp soil and ash from the fireplace. He turned toward the cabin, smiling faintly at the sound of Anna singing to Lily inside. That's when he heard the hoofbeats urgent fast. A moment later, Deputy Colin Graves rode up, dust trailing behind him like smoke. James, the young man, shouted before he'd even dismounted. "We've got trouble." James straightened, already bracing himself. "What kind?" Graves swung down, breath heaving. A man showed up at the saloon just after dawn. He's asking questions about a woman with a baby. "Name's Declan. Scar on his chin. Fits the description you gave me before." James's blood chilled. "Is he armed?" "Yeah." "Colt on his hip. Bowie knife on his belt. Been drinking too. He's throwing around threats, claims the baby's his, and he means to take back what's his." Mayer's nervous. The man's got a short fuse. James's mind raced. Anna. Lily. He handed Graves the bucket and strode quickly toward the cabin boots, crunching over thawing earth. Inside, Anna looked up from Lily's cradle smile, fading as soon as she saw his face. "What is it?" she asked, her voice tight. He closed the door gently behind him. "Declan's here." Anna's body went rigid. She pulled Lily to her chest, shielding her instinctively. "How showed up in town asking questions. Graves says he's angry, drunk, and dangerous. But we're not going to let him get near you." He placed a hand on her shoulder, grounding her. "Listen to me. Lock the doors. Bar the windows. Keep Lily close. I'll deal with him." She looked up, eyes shining with fear. "Don't let him take her, James. Please." He kissed her forehead gently. "He won't get past me." James opened the chest by the door, pulling out his old sheriff's revolver. He hadn't held it since stepping down, but his fingers knew the weight. He strapped the gun belt around his hips, adjusted his hat, and strode into town like a man waking a past. he thought he'd buried. The saloon was already buzzing with unease when he arrived. Townsfolk lingered near windows, peeking behind curtains. Declan sat at the bar, a whiskey glass in hand, sneering at anyone who dared look at him too long. James stepped through the swinging doors, boots landing hard on the wood. The room fell silent. Declan turned. His smile was slow, poisonous. "Well, well. You must be the husband." James didn't blink. "You're not welcome in this town, Declan. You're not here for justice. You're here to hurt the woman you already broke." Declan's grin twisted. "That woman is mine. And that baby, oh, baby, she's my blood. I came to claim what belongs to me." James's hand hovered near his hip. "That's not how family works. You lost any right to them the day you raised your hand in anger. Anna is my wife now. Lily's under my protection. You come near either of them, and you'll answer to me." Declan's eyes narrowed. "You think you're better than me. I think I'm the man who saved them when you left them to die in the snow." For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then Declan slammed his whiskey glass down and reached for his revolver. James drew first. The twin reports of gunfire exploded through the saloon like thunder. Glass shattered. A bottle behind the bar cracked and spilled its contents. Declan staggered, hand clutching his shoulder where James's bullet had struck. His revolver clattered to the floor. He fell to his knees, eyes wide in disbelief. James stepped forward, chest rising with controlled breath. "You're done." Declan growled, blood spilling through his fingers. "You don't get to keep her. You don't get to erase me. I didn't erase you. You did that all by yourself." The deputy rushed in with 2 men and hauled Declan to his feet, shackling his wrists with iron cuffs. James said nothing as they dragged him away. The saloon buzzed with stunned murmurs, but James wasn't listening. He left without another word, his steps quickening toward home. When he reached the cabin, he found Anna rocking Lily by the hearth, tears streaming silently down her face. She looked up as he entered, eyes desperate. "It's over," he said softly. "He's alive, but he won't come near you again. I promise." She rose and walked straight into his arms. Lily was nestled between them, warm and squirming. "I was so afraid," Anna whispered. "I know James said voice rough. So was I." They stood like that for a long time, letting the fire crackle behind them, the wind tap gently at the windows. Outside, Larkspur Ridge went quiet once more. But in the hearts of James, Anna, and their daughter Lily, peace began to settle again. Not the fragile kind they'd known before, but a peace hard-earned, fiercely protected, and deeply deserved. The streets of Larkspur Ridge were silent when James stepped out of the saloon. Behind him, Declan was in custody, wounded, shackled, and groaning, but very much alive. Deputy Graves and 2 ranchers stood guard over him, wary eyes watching his every twitch. The townsfolk who had once hovered anxiously inside their homes now crept out in hesitant clusters, whispering beneath their breath as the outlaw was led away. James paid them no mind. His hand still trembled from the shot he'd fired. Not from the physical strain, it was a clean hit through the shoulder, but from the cold clarity that followed. He hadn't wanted bloodshed, but he'd been ready for it. For Anna. For Lily. For the life he'd built with trembling hands and hope. As the saloon doors swung closed behind him, the world outside felt quieter than it should have. Anna. He mounted his horse and rode fast for the cabin, barely noticing the thudding in his chest or the burning in his legs. The sun had dropped behind the hills, casting a golden hue across the land. As he crested the ridge overlooking the cabin, his eyes scanned the yard, his breath catching in his throat. The curtains had been drawn. The lamp inside burned low. He dismounted in a single motion and strode up the porch steps. Inside, Anna sat by the hearth. Lily clutched tightly to her chest. Her eyes were red cheeks streaked with tears, but she was unharmed. She stood as soon as she saw him. "Is it done?" she asked, voice barely audible. James nodded, closing the door behind him. "He's alive. Wounded. The deputies got him in chains. He won't be a problem anymore." Anna's knees gave slightly, and she sank into the rocking chair, holding Lily close, as if afraid she might disappear. James crossed the room in 2 strides and knelt in front of her. "You're safe. It's over. I heard the shots," she whispered. "I thought I'd lose you." "You almost did," he admitted, his voice thick. "But I couldn't let him take you. Not after everything you've survived. Not after everything we've built." She reached for him, then her free hand trembling as she traced the edge of his jaw. The line of worry etched across his brow. He pressed his forehead to hers. "I didn't kill him. Part of me wanted to, but I didn't. I hit his shoulder, enough to stop him, not enough to end him." Anna's eyes searched his. "Do you regret that?" James shook his head slowly. "No. Because now he faces the law, a cell, a trial. Everyone in that saloon saw what happened. No more running, no more hiding." She exhaled sharply, the weight of fear easing off her shoulders one breath at a time. For a while they didn't speak. They just sat there, the fire warming their faces. The baby's quiet breathing a soft rhythm between them. Outside, the crickets resumed their nighttime chorus, and the world spun forward. Eventually, James stood and poured water into a basin. He washed the sweat and dust from his hands, then lit another lantern. The cabin glowed warmly as he took Lily from Anna's arms and rocked her gently. "She didn't cry," Anna said softly. "Not when you left. Not when the shot rang out. I think she could feel how much you love her." James looked down at Lily's sleeping face, her delicate lashes resting against rosy cheeks. "She's my daughter, maybe not by blood, but in every other way that matters." Anna's lip quivered, and she stood, arms wrapping around his waist from behind. "I thought I was bringing trouble into your life," she said, "but you never flinched, not once." He turned, pulling her into his arms again. "You brought light into it. I was surviving before I found you. Now I'm living." A few hours later, the deputy rode out to the cabin lantern, swinging from his saddle. James stepped outside to meet him. The stars burned bright overhead, unmarred by cloud or doubt. "He's secured," Graves said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Doctor's patching him up, but he'll be transported to Cheyenne by week's end. Mayor signed off on charges, assault, attempted abduction, weapons violations." James nodded. "Let him rot." Graves hesitated, then added, "Town's talking, you know. But it's not like before. They saw the truth today. You did right, James." James looked back at the cabin window where Anna stood with Lily in her arms, silhouetted in golden light. "I didn't do it for them." After the deputy left, James returned to the warmth of the cabin. Anna had prepared a pot of tea, and they sat close on the small love seat, Lily asleep in her cradle. "You think this is really the end of it?" she asked. James looked at her, then glanced at Lily, then out toward the horizon. "I do," he said, "and if it's not, then we'll face whatever comes together." That night, with the lanterns low and the fire dying, James lay awake with Anna curled beside him. Her breathing was soft, steady, peaceful. He thought about the man he used to be, the sheriff, with a badge, a rifle, and a lonely cabin. A man who had learned to live with emptiness. And now, that emptiness had been replaced, not with ease, not with perfection, but with love. And that, he realized, was more powerful than any badge, any gun, or any outlaw could ever be. Months later, the memory of that final gunshot in Larkspur Ridge still flickers in James Kincaid's mind. Yet the nightmares fade each morning when he wakes to find Anna by his side and Lily babbling from her crib, safe and thriving. By summer, their cabin brims with fresh hope. A repaired roof, a small garden, and laughter echoing by the wood stove. He works odd jobs, ranching and guiding travelers, content to let the new deputy enforce the law. Anna sews blankets to sell in town, earning her place in the community. Their love, kindled by a snowbound rescue, burns brighter each day. If you've been moved by this tender, tumultuous journey of courage, redemption, and devotion on the wild frontier, please support this story by giving the video a thumbs up. Share it with friends who relish heartfelt Western dramas, and subscribe to this channel for more stirring tales of love against the odds. Your engagement helps keep these frontier stories alive. Thank you for riding along.